Thank you for joining me, Michael Rubino, for another episode of Mold Talks Docs. Today, I have Rachel Varga with us today, and I'm very excited to present her to you. She's not only board certified, she's a researcher, and she's disrupting the industry on the medical side of things, which I think is really, really important to help carry the conversation. I'm not going to spoil it because we're going to ask Rachel herself to kind of give us a deep dive. Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Michael, for having me on the show. And I've actually been going through the journey of myself of cleaning up my environment and reaping the benefits of having the best skin of my life. So I'm thrilled to be here, thrilled to talk about the actually what mold does to the skin and how it can impact our rejuvenation and aging process. So this is going to be a fun one.
Oh, that's exciting. So I've actually never covered this angle before. And, I know that myself and my wife personally really care about our skin. And I think that, I know that sometimes I struggle with skin issues. Sometimes my wife does. Probably many people do that are listening to this. So I think this is a great topic because, I do talk about how mold does impact the skin. You have rashes, hives. But as far as the aging process goes, I'd love to hear everything that you've done in research, because I think that there's so much to mold and bacteria and water damaged homes that we still don't know. There's probably a lot more other issues that come out of it. And so just really excited for you to bring this perspective and this angle to the table. So thank you. And why don't you dive right in?
Well, absolutely. Why don't we just start with the fact that my father's a carpenter and was actually also involved in mold remediation, and just thinking back on how he would have done that mold remediation compared to how you recommend doing it. I'm just shaking my head because he's probably going to be experiencing some things. So I'm helping my parents biohack their current home and what they're doing to hopefully correct some of the exposure that he's had as well. So let's just maybe start with one of my clients, Gemma. She's in her mid-30s and she reached out to me. She's been going through a mold detox journey as well, had to move and all sorts of things. And when she met with me in a one-on-one call, she said, I feel like my skin's changed overnight. It's lost the collagen and elastin. It feels just like really thin and crispy. And no matter what she does to it, it just doesn't seem to improve. And this is something I hear quite a bit of, especially when clients are, say, seeking rejuvenation in clinic, whether that's chemical peels, lasers, injectables, body contouring, surgery, everything. I have 20,000+ procedures under my belt that I've performed. And it's almost like if you take the time as a practitioner to actually listen to your patients, what they're telling you they're experiencing. And then I would say something like, oh, how old is the home that you live in? Oh, it's a 1950s heritage building. Maybe that's why you feel like your skin's aged overnight, considering you just moved into that home a couple of months ago. So it's really important as practitioners and in the skin space, really nobody's asking these questions. So I like to just provide awareness and education to the industry internationally. Just publish a UK journal talking about this rejuvenation algorithm, and first and foremost, patient selection, to make sure that they're not already inflamed, to make sure that their toxic bucket is as empty as possible. And so there's some things that I mentioned in that paper that, I haven't really heard anybody else talk about, and it's being very well received, which is great, because if we want to get the best skin of our life and slow cellular aging, we have to first listen to our bodies. Are our eyes telling us that we have underlying inflammation? Do we have signs of mast cell activation? Your body just can't tolerate things the way it used to. You might not be a good candidate for rejuvenation options. Maybe let's focus on some more less invasive at-home skincare, dermal rolling, cleaning up your self-care products. There's so many things we can do, but if you're working with mold detoxification, you're going through that process, you really need to understand that rejuvenation procedures might not be the best for you.
Sure. And with respect, you said you had this client and was living in this older home, and you just kind of knew right off the bat. Maybe obviously you've been in this industry, you've been seeing this. I think your dad being a carpenter, you probably know a lot more about homes and buildings than maybe the average doctor. So I think that adds a lot of value to that. What is that red flag, or if you, maybe there's many, but what kind of is that indicator to you that to ask that question, that are you living in an older home? Have you had water damage? Those types of things that kind of make you think that that's the case.
When I'm meeting with a client for the first time, or it's been an existing client that I've worked with for many years, like in the case of one of my other clients, Rachel, young woman in her 30s, just all of a sudden with, not too long ago after moving into an older home also, she started to get neurological stuff with like tremors and just like some mood stuff that was starting to happen. And also, higher rates of breakouts. And so just asking her, okay, what labs have you done? I've seen my doctor, I even went to Emerge, everything came back fine. Well, there's other things that you can test for too, like mycotoxins, but unfortunately they're not routinely looked at. And I was able to help her kind of go through a bit of a rabbit hole herself. Also, one of my friends is Dave Asprey, and I've literally gone into buildings with him that say he's doing construction on, and within about 5 minutes, he starts coughing. So some of us seem to be able to handle environmental stressors better than others. There's a huge genetic component to this as well, but there also can be that toxic bucket component too. So I've seen this in so many of my clients, and it's just great to be able to provide awareness that, if you are in a moldy environment, you really have to work a little extra harder. If you can't move, to just purify the products you're using so that you're not contributing to further inflammation in the body. But if a client's telling me that, everything's checking out, but they still feel off, that's one really easy thing to ask for. It's, well, maybe try and do some remediation or move or work on your air filtration. There's lots of things that we can do, as to correct the situation.
No, that's very helpful. And it's important for somebody who, maybe isn't dealing with respiratory or headaches or chronic fatigue, but is dealing with constant skin issues. This can be another good indicator, right? And finding someone like you and working with someone like you to help them through that, I think, is really important because, like I said, it's an angle that nobody is talking about, outside of the basics. So love the fact that you're diving deep into this and helping people in that regard, because, it's really important. Skin, obviously, having a very big, not the word circumference, but it's
largest organ of the body,
right? It has the most potential influx of anything, so I think it's really important that we do pay attention to our skin and protect our skin, and are making sure that we're taking that serious. When we talked about research, right, you mentioned the word toxic bucket. And I know you've done a lot of research around this toxic bucket, and I would love for you to share. I love the analogy. I love everything about it. And it makes sense, right? Because we all have different immune systems. We all have different sized buckets, if you will, right? And different people can handle different stressors better. So I would love for you to walk us through that from that, clinical space.
Absolutely. And just to add to my background, I'm also a pediatric trach vent certified registered nurse. And that's actually what I did for the first couple of years of my career as a more like traditional RN, highly specialized. I was in the weeds with, veteran ICU nurses in their 50s doing this training and doing this type of work. So I've always been really aware of the air quality around me from actually my, I would say, mid early 20s. And the toxic bucket theory is actually something is really quite simple when you think about it. And actually, through one of the health network and organizations I'm a part of, which is a lot of functional practitioners, a lot of diagnosticians that are ordering all these heavy metal labs, mycotoxin labs, genetic tests, or doing detoxes with their clients. And when I was, green in this space a number of years ago, they were telling me, hey, I've had this client, he's got an autoimmune condition. And they recently had a rejuvenation injectable, for example, or implants. Breast implant illness is huge with this stuff too. And they had issues with it. And they're telling me this. And how could I not begin to take this into account with a clear conscience and sleep well at night? That, okay, people do have problems from rejuvenation options. And of course, this isn't medical advice, educational information only. If you think you have a medical condition, you must seek the guidance of a licensed physician. It appears that there's a link, however, between those who can tolerate rejuvenation well and those that maybe are going to have a higher rate of side effects, adverse events, internal inflammation. It can just be that one little addition to that toxic bucket that can tip it over. And then you have disease and symptoms manifesting. The biggest thing you'll see in the skin, if you are in an environment that is not conducive to your genes and the amount of toxins you already have in your toxic bucket, one of the first things that I notice in others is coughing within a few moments of being in an environment. So coughing. I also just spoke with someone earlier today that when they were in an environment, the next day they had just tremendous swelling of their eyes and their face. When there's kind of like chronic inflammation, what I see, and based on my 10 plus years also in ophthalmology, oculoplastic surgery, and doing dry eye treatments, is this kind of like residual inflammation appearance in some individuals where their actual eyelids, which is part mucosa, part skin, the inner part of your eyelid is literally smooth mucosa. Kind of like if you were to think of the gut and leaky gut and all of that. And the actual lash line can become red and inflamed, and even the lids themselves become edematous. It's almost like there's like this water hanging out there. Also, diffuse redness to the eyes, diffuse redness to the corners of the nose, the cheeks are key indicators that there's underlying inflammation. Like we said before, the skin is the largest organ of the body. Also, it can manifest people having an inability to clear toxins and hold excess toxins with things like sunspots and brown spots, because these senescent cells are hanging out, they're sticking around, and sometimes things like senolytics can be helpful to like prune the things that need to go. And things like red acne scarring that's lingering, it's not going away as fast as we would hope, say in like a couple days to a week, but it's like months. Those are all signs in this that your skin's trying to tell you something, that there's some internal inflammation. And it's like accelerated aging type of feel when you wake up and you feel like you've aged, 5 years or so overnight, just that drop off of collagen and elastin, which can very much be tied to mold impacting your hormones and your liver having a problem detoxifying toxins, which is a regulator for healthy hormones. So to bring it all together, the toxic bucket theory that I work with my clients is, if say your HRV, if your biohacker, your HRV metric is a little bit low, or you're just feeling run down in general, that is not the time to say do any type of medical intervention or rejuvenation option that's, quote unquote, elective or aesthetic or cosmetic. It's, to delay things when you are feeling better.
It was really informative. I was almost like in a trance, just kind of learning all that information. This is great stuff. And I think it brings up a good point, kind of tying back to what you said earlier. This is all born out of you listening and caring and wanting to do the research to get to where you are today, to be able to provide this information out there. And, there is not many people in your exact field that have a clue about mold. Not that you're a dermatologist, right? But if someone goes to a dermatologist right now and says, I have all these issues, I think it's mold related, what are the odds that you think that they're going to be told that's crazy? You just need this cream, right? Or you just need this little treatment here. And so, it's noble of you to be doing this research, because it's going to help shape and push the industry forward. You are what I would consider a disruptor, right? And you are disrupting what is considered normal, and you're pushing the boundaries and saying, look, normal isn't working. What we've considered normal modern medicine is not working, right? These things are not working. People are still getting sick. Over 50% of the global population is dealing with at least one chronic condition, right? So I can't say that that's working. I think we can do better. And I think in order to do better, we have to ask more questions, and we have to get down to more root cause issues. So I really appreciate and applaud you for that. And I want to talk about this whole listening and how we can plead other doctors to listen, right? Because I could only imagine, and I'm only guessing here, that you work with patients who come to you with crazy stories about how many doctors they've went through, and now they found you, and now they actually have answers for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a recent conversation with the Neurohacker Collective gang, and there, some very OG type of people in there in the space of rejuvenation, lasers, and all of that stuff. And even they're noticing at things like A4M that there are this new wave of younger practitioners that are really into blending the best of both worlds. And in fact, with my clients and on my two shows, the Rachel Varga podcast and Beauty and the Biohacker podcast, which you're going to be on, Michael, I can't wait to have you on my two shows too. It's all about finding practitioners that are blending the best of both worlds. And there are a lot more of these types of practitioners coming up through the woodworks. I know for like the older generation of physicians and surgeons, seeing this firsthand, they don't always want to acknowledge the functional side of things because they don't want to get flack from their colleagues, right? Because they have to answer to a college and things like that. And they don't want to go beyond their scope. And what's frustrating for me as a practitioner and a patient is I go to my gynecologist for a checkup, childbearing years and, getting everything sorted. I'm on a huge, long-term like preconception plan, longer than most because of my friends in the, holistic fertility, functional fertility space. And I'll present my Dutch test, for example, which is, one of the best ways to monitor your hormones. And my gynae simply said, forgive my ignorance, but I've never been taught how to read these diagnostics. And it's actually really easy for her to like interpret things on the printout of the Dutch test. For myself as a registered nurse and obviously for her as a physician. And I just think it's a shame that so many more of us are doing these functional tasks. We're bringing our labs to practitioners and they're simply saying, I don't know how to interpret that. I'm not going to include that in your care. So if you can seek out those providers that when you listen to them speaking, you look them in your eyes, you feel like you can trust them and you're able to bring labs that you've already done and they're open to that, I think that that's a really good sign because we are seeing this, unfortunately, like split or duality with practitioners, those that are just doing the West. I mean, Western has a place, especially if you're in a traumatic event. But in Canada, where I am from on the West Coast, I love statistics. And I can't make this stuff up. This is actually not a great statistic I'm about to share. But for some reason, now it's, no longer as easy to find for some reason. But I have emails to validate this. Every 2 years, the StatsCan releases information on mortality rates by type. So Canada's about 2 years behind. We're pretty slow in getting data out. So just earlier this year in February, the 2020 statistics came out. Now, those are supposed to be published actually later the year before, but for some reason, there was a delay. And again, emails to back this up. I emailed them. I'm like, where are the statistics? Oh, it's not going to happen until like January or February. And so I go through because I'm always interested in something called a signal. And what you were talking about with, higher rates of certain autoimmune stuff happening, actually from looking at the data set from 2016 to 2019, things were really steady in the mortality of unknown cause, which I emailed back to StatsCan for clarification. What does that mean? It's basically autoimmune stuff, or people weren't yet diagnosed while they were waiting for they weren't yet diagnosed and passed away before they received a diagnosis. And get this, from 2019 to 2020, that number doubled. And going through all the different mortality rates by type and looking at previous years and 2019 to 2020, that doubled. So I'm just very surprised why other international Canadian researchers aren't thinking, wait a second, what's contributing to this autoimmune stuff? And I think it's just really, it's not just mold, it's really everything in your air, your water, your lighting, your electromagnetics, hello, non-ionizing radiation, right? From your cell phones that messes with your blood. So think oxygenation, nutrient flow to all your organs, your brain, your eyes, and also detoxification, carrying away things like CO2 and toxins. If you are not grounded and you're around EMFs all the time and you're not doing EMF mitigation or mold mitigation, it's going to affect your blood, which is essentially your life force. So if you want to look and feel your best, being as pure as you possibly can in all four of those aspects, not to mention work with body, mind, spirit, energy, that is really what's going to help to improve your beauty, slow your aging, and increase that kind of like je ne sais quoi, or the magic sauce of what radiance is. When you talk with someone, you're like, wow, this person has something. I want to keep listening. But just look at their eyes. If they seem like a radiant, vibrant human that you want to be more like, or if you're looking at what they're saying and they're just kind of like dead faced and kind of flat, is there really anything going on upstairs, or are they just kind of in it for the fame, the ego, and the money? There's like this, again, duality in skin influencers online that I find.
Yeah, good point. I mean, there's a lot of issues with influencers. A lot of people are selling things that don't work. It's all about I guess the money and fortune and fame and however you want to phrase it. I think that's why kind of when I look at products, I mean, a lot of people come to me with, sell my product, and I'm like, cool, let me see all the scientific studies on that. And when they don't have any and they want me to sell their product and they're making marketing claims instead of actual claims that will help people, I quickly turn it down, right? Because this whole industry, and the industry meaning just selling products, needs to shift, right? It needs to shift. It needs to all be scientifically based when they make claims, and they need to sell products that actually help people, not just to sell products to make money. And I think we've really gone down the wrong path there, where everything's an influencer. I mean, entire companies' marketing strategies have become just, let me pay this influencer and have them sell products, or let me pay all of these influencers, right, and sell products. So it's become this marketing plan. And what's born out of that? A bunch of stuff that doesn't work. And that's what we're stuck with, right? So I think it's really, really important for people to do their homework. And it can be difficult because sometimes you don't know which questions to ask. You don't know the right questions to ask. You don't know the right specifications to look for. That's why I think, always work with someone who is qualified, who has years of experience, that can tell you, why is this actually better? And don't be afraid to ask, why is this actually better? Because I think it's really important that people do that.
Yeah, and to add to that, to go to the positive side of things, the good news is we're seeing parallel systems form, like with your work, Michael, with my work and our communities that we're a part of. We're seeing traditional systems essentially collapse because they're no longer meeting the needs of people like us who are more conscious of our consumption in every way. Don't even get me started on that. The good news is, Michael, and all of you tuning in here, that we are seeing old systems collapse. And what I mean by that is just the Western system as being, the silver bullet, the one size fits all approach, because there's so many of us now, Michael, and all of you listening, that are really on a health journey. And we understand the importance of really coupling some ancient traditions of health and wellness that have been around for thousands of years, with the new and latest and greatest and all of that. So we are seeing old systems kind of collapse because they're simply not meeting the needs of more conscious consumers and patients like you guys listening here. And we're seeing new parallel systems form. And we do see this at different times in our human civilization. But when things are changing and ending, it is kind of uncomfortable. There's like this growth period, but I'm just really happy and I have a lot of joy. I feel a lot of joy for the skin and aesthetics and dermatology and plastic surgery world, that what I have to say is being very well received. In fact, I have a lot of younger clinicians working to meet with me to teach them how to employ my holistic science of beauty method. Like in that recent algorithm I just printed, had published in Journal of Aesthetic Medicine, Journal of Aesthetic Nursing in the UK, this rejuvenation algorithm and patient selection process, and being able to do a good faith health exam at each appointment to make sure you're not inadvertently causing harm to someone that has a pretty full toxic bucket. But you're not going to know that until you know what to look for and what to listen for.
So well said, and I think you're right. I think the tide is changing. People are becoming more and more aware. There's people like you and me that are giving information out for free just to have people empowered to make the right decisions for themselves. Because at the end of the day, if they're not making the right decisions, we're stuck in this rut. We can't advance technology, we can't advance forward. And so I'm so excited to play my small part in that. I don't know how you feel about yours. I'm sure you feel the same way.
I sleep very well at night.
And I think it's moving the conversation forward. And we're going to learn new things along the way. And I think that's great. That's what science is all about. It's about learning and adapting, about trial and error, right? And so I think as we continue to advance forward, and the people listening obviously are doing that with us right now, right here today, by listening, by expanding their mind, by expanding their perception and concepts of what they know as reality. It's still at the infancy of this journey for sure. But I just being here for 10 years and seeing people waking up to the fact that my home can make me sick. My home does need to be thought of in the actual holistic health plan. I love that you use that word holistic. Some people think that the word holistic means like a specific type of medicine. It actually, holistic means just the whole picture, right? Bringing everything full circle. And so it's more than air, right? We have food, we have water, we have diet. From my perspective, the reason that I am so adamant on bringing, the living environment, the external toxins, the exposures we're experienced, because we really don't talk about it at all. Right. And so for me, it was like, there's a door wide open here and people are not walking through it. And I think that's really important because we know food. We know that food is important. We know we got to have a good diet. We know that water is important, that we need to increase our water intake and have cleaner water. But we take 20,000 breaths per day. And it's literally one of the last things that most people think about, just in terms of how is the air that comes inside my body impacting my health. And it's wild to me that, that it isn't something that's at the top of our list. It's not even on the list at all. So, I think that it's really great to see people moving in this direction. You may not be a mold remediation expert. You may not be a water damage expert or even a construction expert. But I love the fact that you've taken your knowledge in your industry and you've opened the door and said, there's other external things that are making people come to me with problems.
Yeah. And when you're talking about different things in your home making you sick, well, what about different products and procedures that are making you sick too? And people don't always think about that. They might not realize that the skincare products they're using every morning and evening, or the products that they're using to clean their homes with, are actually containing things like parabens, phthalates, sulfates, artificial dyes, fragrances with phthalates, and testing on animals. So what I do for my clients is I take a look at the products they're already using, and if there's some room for improvement, I actually go through what they're using, like ingredient by ingredient on a call. And then I'll say, no, I really want you to stop using that because there's weird ingredients like nitrates, tin, DNA, and of course, the worst offenders, parabens, phthalates, sulfates, artificial dyes, and fragrances. And then I reorient them towards something that's free of all that I've worked with my clients. I've had them use since 2011, and I see what people get results with, what they keep coming back for more with. When you start to clean up your self-care products, you can see changes in your skin actually within just a couple of days to a couple of weeks. So less of that diffuse redness, more glassiness, more smoothness, less of that dryness from just doing, again, a couple key basics with your skincare routine too, like cleansing morning and night, moisturizing morning and night, mineral sun protection every day. But yes, get that full body sun exposure as often as you can, 15 minutes a day, obviously, and some gentle exfoliation. The crazy thing, one of the reasons why I'm also passionate about mold and our air quality is because of the research coming out of different countries, especially in the Orient, where they have higher rates of air pollution. And with that comes higher rates of things like acne and sensitive skin and diffuse redness to the skin, or otherwise sometimes called rosacea, when really it's kind of like a very broad term, I find, when really they just get on a basic protocol, they reduce their inflammatory triggers, they reduce their toxic bucket load. Lo and behold, that sensitive skin, that very red inflamed skin starts to improve in actually pretty short order. So when there's dirt, debris, mold, microbes, pollutants in the air, what happens is it sits on the skin. It actually creates oxidative stress on the skin itself. So that's why we see higher rates of inflamed skin in different areas of the world that have higher rates of pollution also. And we're inside so much more with working from home. I know I am. And so making sure that that indoor air quality is as pristine and as pure as possible. Yeah, we definitely need to be looking for those signals. Like I said, I do. And I look at that actually through like countrywide statistics, but not everybody notices that. Scientists look for signals. But the other crazy thing about mold and mycotoxins is the psychoactive effects that they can have. And with this can come psychological impacts where we might be interfered with actually by mycotoxins and parasites and all sorts of things that actually can make us behave differently. They can make us behave a little bit in a more anxious state, or be anxious about things that we really don't need to be anxious about. Also having like crazy dreams. But if your mind is altered from things like mycotoxins, you're not going to have the most beautiful outlook on life, right? Your brain's not going to be working very well. So you won't take the time to be slow and maybe notice that beautiful naturescape and be speaking to yourself and others in a more beautiful and loving way, because you're kind of messed with upstairs, but it's not your fault. So the psychological components of mold are pretty profound, and even like body image and the skin and all sorts of things, self-talk. So mold is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you firsthand about some of the psychological effects from dealing with thousands of people, husbands having mold rage, wives having mold rage, kids having mold rage. And that's not the short end of it. You have hopelessness, right? You have people that unfortunately just want things to be over with, right? You have depression, anxiety, positive, a very negative outlook on life, of course. And I think like when you look back at all that, and there's different avenues, right, of how that manifests itself. But I think when you look back at that, just thinking about, you're not feeling well, when you're not feeling well and you don't know what's wrong and you can't get through it, you don't have the answers, you're living in this mystery of, will I ever get better? How could you possibly have a positive outlook on life? It's severely hampering your quality of life. And I think that it's one avenue that in mental health being, that I think that is definitely not talked about enough, as much as the typical chronic fatigue, brain fog that you hear about. And I think, definitely more research and study needs to be done on that. I have a strong suspicion that if you walk into some of the wards around the country and you start doing some testing, I think you'll be surprised at what you find of how much this is impacting the mental health community. Because I think that if we're going to do this from a holistic perspective, we really have to look at it from all angles.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I wanted to just kind of talk about here was we just simply want to be our less interfered with selves. You've probably heard this term authentic. I interviewed JJ Virgin once, and she said, I hate the word authentic. It's just like, just be you, be your most truest self. And I'll actually go a step further and say, be your most purest self with your body, mind, spirit, and energy. And really, that's only achieved with what you said with your food choices, and not just eating healthy foods, but eating foods that are actually going to work with your epigenetics and your DNA, and making sure you're staying on top of your home and office air, water, lighting, and EMF qualities as to be quote unquote less interfered with. Do things like monthly parasite detoxes, just so that you are going to be your most purest, happiest version, so that you don't have interactions with people and you're just like, your brain isn't working right, or having crazy dreams. This is going to impact your sleep. That's like a huge thing with mold. But the other thing with skin is, as you know, when we go through different changes of seasons, there's, say, for example, when the leaves fall on the ground, there's mold release from that, right? With the decomposition process and the fungi coming in there and decomposing everything, right? Things are released. So when I work with clients, I actually see a bit of an uptick with things like diffuse redness and itchiness, or contact dermatitis is what it's called. And it just kind of flares up, I find. I see higher rates of the stuff around the fall transition to winter and the spring transition to summer. So decomposing leaves, more pollen. And if it's sitting on the skin, if you're not cleansing properly and using products that are appropriately cleansing and even exfoliating, a lot of people with sensitive skin are scared to cleanse and exfoliate. And I'm telling you one thing, you are trapping mold, you are trapping dirt, debris from the air. It's sitting in your stratum corneum, which is like stacked up cornflakes. If you're not cleansing and exfoliating, those particulates are hanging out in the superficial layers of your skin, the stratum corneum, and it's going to create oxidative stress. So whoever was telling people to not wash their face twice a day or to just use facial oils, I see this all the time. As we age and mature, sometimes our skin does need some more sophisticated formulas to actually feed and nourish the skin. Can't always get away with, super clean hippy dippy skincare. Maybe use that stuff for your body, but there is quite a science to making sure that you are feeding and nourishing and cleansing and protecting and exfoliating the skin so that you're not having things like mold trapped on the skin. So making sure the air in your bedroom is pure is so incredibly key, so that your skin can at least rejuvenate during that time when your skin's trying to regenerate itself. So yeah, contact dermatitis, changes of seasons. You can also get atopic dermatitis. There's a PubMed study from last year that different skincare products can actually create that, different brands in particular, because they contain allergens. So pay attention to the air, pay attention to the products you're putting on your skin. And there's a lot of, you mentioned free information. There's a lot of subpar free information out there that's just there to confuse you. We're living in a very confusing world. And it's almost like what I think it's kind of designed to do to us is to keep us confused so that we are losing sight of what's most important to our body, mind, spirit, energy, people, places, and things around us, kind of distract us, pull us off course. So when you take the time to remediate the mold in your home, when you take the time to make sure you're using clean personal care products that are free of toxins, but are still going to actually do what you're hoping they're going to do, you are going to be in a much better place, and you're going to feel better, and you're going to slow your cellular aging as well.
It's really well said. And to be honest, I think in this episode, I've learned more about skin, I think, than I have my entire life. So really appreciate that. That's, I think I'll be the first one to say, after kind of hearing you speak, I don't know that I am taking care. I think I'm taking care of my skin. I wash it. I wash it twice a day, so I have that box checked. But it sounds like there's all these other things that I could be doing that I'm not. And so, as I kind of learn from you, I'll probably be one of your first clients off of this podcast, because I too want to learn more about the skin, how important exfoliation is, especially with regards to mold, because it makes a heck of a lot of sense. Again, not something that I specialize in. I'm more focused on the home, but as I start to look inwards, right? And how do I keep myself from aging? How do I make sure that I'm healthy and stay around long enough to be able to keep helping people? These are things that are highly important. If you're listening to this, I can tell you for one thing, I've interviewed many, many doctors, and I have never heard of this angle before, talking about the skin, how important the skin is. I've always noticed that, I've always known that the skin is highly important, just as important as it is for the air that you're breathing to protect your skin. It is kind of the outer layer of our bodies here. And of course, being the largest organ, having pores, right? Things can get in through the skin. So I think it's definitely a big eye opener for me. Hopefully for those listening, this is refreshing for you too, because I know that, like I said, this is not a topic that's typically covered a lot. And I know I've learned a lot. So I really appreciate that. What are some other things that you can leave us with?
Well, you mentioned something about the gentlemen. About 25% of the listeners on my show, the Rachel Varga podcast, are guys. And so on the show, I definitely drop a lot of insights to help the ladies and the gents, because when I do consults with guys, which I will actually offer one to you, Michael, as a thanks for having me on the show. Men never learn this stuff. And the things that my male clients tell me are things like, I feel like I don't want to feel like I'm missing out. And, my girlfriend's got a great skin. I got to look after myself too. And the funny thing is, sometimes I'll do work with couples too. So they just need to, book a little extra time so I can meet both needs. But it's actually really great. So with my husband, he's a pro athlete, and I'll remind him, have you done your dermal rolling? Have you put on your skincare and your sunscreen today? And then he will quickly say back, Rachel, have you exercised today? So we can have some fun with this, with supporting ourselves personally, but also if we are in a relationship, to, have the products out, have them easy access. And then my husband, once products empty, he'll just place it on the counter for me to replenish for him. So I can always tell what he likes. But for men like to keep things simple. So trust me, I love working with guys. I have actually quite a few male celebrity clients, and what I'm finding with male clients is they're wanting to be competitive in their professional workplaces. They don't want to look tired. That's a big thing for guys, is low brows, hooded eyelids, sunspots, photo damage, the skin on the neck, the back of the neck, hair loss. Michael, you are looking wonderful. So I'm not speaking to you with those things, but those are some of the common things that my male clients, they meet with me online here virtually, and it's very convenient. And also ladies as well. I have clients all over the world, and it's just very private. We can go pretty in depth with how much of a biohacker you are or aren't, and, cover the basics, which of course, all about with mold and biohacking that in the home. But it's just nice to have a conversation to make sure that the basics are covered with cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen scrub, maybe throw in some more advanced protocols like dermal rolling, maybe some peptides, some retinol, at-home peels, because guys don't like pain. If that's one thing that I've learned, you're not really used to having people touch your face from a tactile perspective. But I also postulate that there's something different with the nociceptors on men's faces, which is the receptor that helps you feel pain. So I'm very, very experienced working with men. It always warms my heart when I have a man booking with me, because I know that what they're going to learn from me, they're not going to be exposing themselves to toxins, but it's also going to help them look great. I did a follow-up with one of my clients who's also named Michael. He's on testosterone, hormone replacement therapy. He's got his biceps coming back. He's also done some work with mold. His hair is coming in nicely. He's done a couple things I've suggested, and he just looks awesome. And it's really nice seeing my clients progress. And he's even been able to share some of his products with his daughter, and it's just really nice seeing that. So it's not just, the skin stuff is not just for the ladies. You still got to use stuff on your face too. And you want it to feel good. You might not want it to feel too rich. A lot of guys don't like heavy creams. So maybe a gel or a serum could be an option. But keeping things simple is what I'm here to do. Simplify things. But we're still going to age, Michael. Like he said, don't age. Well, newsflash, you can't stop time. But what we can do is slow our cellular aging. So that's actually something I'm super passionate about. It's, what is radiance? What is beauty? How do we achieve it? And it's noted in those subset of clients that I meet with that are doing the body, mind, spirit, energy, biohacking work, that are aware of their environments. And just a little tip, if say you go in a big box store and you just get wafted with VOCs, plastics, you can smell things like rubber or perfumes. I actually want you to leave that store right away, because when you are inhaling that and smelling that, it's passing your olfactory sensor. It's getting in your brain. That's how you register you're smelling something. The same thing goes if you're going in a home and you can tell it's really musty in there. I recommend, maybe if you're at somebody's house, be like, hey, let's go for a walk instead, right? Because some of your friends or family members' homes are probably, full of mold. If you look up closely at the rafters or in the home, you'll probably be able to see it. So protect yourself with like your mold exposure just as much as you say you need to protect your energy during these days, and who you're spending time with and things like that. And it will, when you're doing this stuff, make you feel a little bit alone or like the odd one out, or that you actually have to pay so much attention to this stuff so that you're not in pain, so that you don't wake up the next day with inflamed looking eyes, so that you don't start having a coughing or sneezing fit, or pay for it for a couple of days or even a couple of weeks with significant brain fog. We're all wonderfully and beautifully made. And listening to yourself, to your environment, what cues are, like maybe your my nose is crazy. I'll be on a hike and I can literally smell a bear. So some of us have more keen senses than others, but if you do smell something and it doesn't smell great, I do recommend exiting the situation and making sure that you are trying to reduce your exposure while living your life.
Yeah, no, that's a great recommendation. I think smells are good. It's obviously a great way to sense if something is off or not, because typically when you're in a safer environment, you're not going to notice any particular smells. When you get into a not so safe environment, you're going to notice that there's an odd smell. If you've ever like walked, into a place and opened the front door and like, you're just like, what is that smell? That's exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's some sort of particle that is coming into contact with your body that, again, your brain is registering, and it's giving you off this perception of whatever that smell that you're smelling, right? So I think it's highly, highly valuable. Great point there. I have learned an infinite amount. I know we talked a lot about men and things like that, and how maybe statistically speaking, men don't pay as much attention to skincare as women. I know I'm guilty of that, raising my hand here. But I think that it's definitely something that after this talk today, I mean, you're doing a great job with your awareness, because I am now like, I need to figure this out and learn more about this and see what I can do more proactively. I'm not getting younger. Every single day I get older, right? And that's kind of how that works. And so anything that I can do to increase longevity and make myself look better for longer in the process, I'm all for that.
Yeah, how fun is this having a podcast? You just get to talk with cool people doing cool things in their lives, helping others. I'm sure you sleep very well at night. What is it like for you to have people on the show, to learn yourself, and then also be able to share that information with your audience?
It's my favorite thing about having a podcast is just the fact that I get to learn in the process. Anyone who tells you that they know everything about everything is lying. I think that, there's always new things to learn. And I love having people on a podcast that do cover a new perspective, because there's a lot more opportunity to learn. Just like for people that are listening, if I interviewed the same people over and over again that covered the same exact topics, it wouldn't be that interesting. So I think, for me, I get excited to be able to learn new things and share credible information with people, making sure that the information's credible and making sure that people are getting the information that they need so that they can do it. And I think, we kind of talked about this earlier, but there is no one size fits all, right? And so just having the information and seeing what works for you and being able to implement things that do work for you, that's all part of the process.
Yeah, definitely. And getting back to the gents, because what's your breakdown of audience, ladies and gentlemen? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. It's 85% women, 15% men. And I think the reason behind that is women are much more intuitive about their environments. I also find that, and this is my perception of that because of talking to so many people and asking questions and just seeing that women, for whatever reason, seem to be the most intuitive about what's happening around them. But from a male perspective too, like, I have great conversations with some great men out there. Some of them are dealing with mold and are experiencing the effects of it. But even the ones that don't think they are, right? As you start to talk about things, they sort of get it. But it's, from a societal standpoint, we're talking about things that nobody really ever talked about before. there wasn't this widespread awareness around your environment and how many breaths we take. And so I think that guys just tend to be a little bit slower to catch on. It's just that simple. And I think we will see a turn in that, because I think, at least I speak for myself. When I realize that something is important, I tend to go all in and try to learn about it. And so, I think that I may be slower to find the information in some aspects, right? But when I do, like, you will get a call from me, because I am serious about learning about how to take care of myself better, especially as it relates to my skin. So I think we just have a little bit of a time lag there.
Do you know why women are this way?
I wouldn't pretend to know.
All right. Well, I'm part of this, weekly scientific roundtable. And with all the stuff going on in the world, what's really interesting is historically, most research studies have involved men. And the reason why is they're actually easier to perform clinical trials with. And think about the difference between men and women. Last time I checked, ladies have cycles, right? Every month we go through menstruation. So women actually will notice changes in their bodies easier. They'll notice it with cycle irregularities. They'll notice it with hormonal imbalances. So it might, yes, I'm a big believer in, I work with a lot of intuitive empaths, like all my clients. It's probably like attracts like or something like that. But I think it's because women notice things with their bodies, because we are almost trained to like notice each month how the cycle was, how we're feeling. And if things are off, we notice it. And guys simply don't have that in their biology. I mean, you can't really refute that. But the funny thing with my husband, he's a pro athlete, 6-time pro world champion kickboxer, Gabriel Varga. He is very in tune with his body. So he'll see me do all this biohacking stuff. And he's like, I don't think you need that. You just need to stick with the basics, right? Stick with the basics, exercise, eat right. And I'm like, well, wait a second. That food you're eating, based on this test that we did together, is actually inflammatory for you. And when you don't have the window open and we live in an older home, we need to have air purifiers. And guess what? He finally admitted last week, Michael, he was in a training camp and he just defeated a young man 11 years younger than him. He's a kickboxer in his late 30s. Usually, fighter athletes, they kind of tap out, no pun intended, in sort of like early 30s. And he said to me last week, this has been a really good camp and I haven't had many injuries. I haven't been as much pain. I've recovered really well. I felt really good. I'm like, yeah, it's been the best camp of our marriage because you have been in a better mood. And I've had him do all these, gently, presented things to him to do and just do it in the home for both of us. So it's really interesting seeing my husband finally acknowledge that all this stuff that his crazy wife's doing to make her home healthier, right? Reduce mold. We're in an older home. We got to think about this stuff, bringing him along to my sauna sessions. And he's finally acknowledging and noticing that, hey, I kind of had to do this stuff.
No, and that's another really good thing that we kind of, I think, should talk about is how a lot of people think that just because they're getting older, that all these things that happen are normal, right? And I know, like, I did this whole detox program back in January this year. I too was like, yeah, maybe I'm just getting older. I feel more tired, more sluggish. I was gaining weight. I was just not really feeling like myself. Always looked tired, things like that. And I just was like, oh, well, I work my butt off. I have kids, kids are young, chase them around after work. And I just kind of attributed it to this just being normal. And so when I think about that, I think, it's important to highlight how your husband in his late 30s, with the right program and treatments, he's able to be in peak performance. And I think that's important to highlight because, like I said, we tend to normalize that. Well, it's just normal part of getting older.
Yeah, I think normalizing brain fog and not feeling great is something that is a signal that we should pay attention to and not normalize feeling gross all day, every day, having to pop pain relievers for that headache you're getting every day. Well, I biohack so that I don't have headaches after car crashes and all sorts of things. I have not gone that route of the easy fix, doing the work, getting to the root cause, and in the process, I just have the best skin of my life.
So I do want to ask, in terms of where can people find you, right? I know you graciously offered to give people a coupon code, MoldMedic15, that they can use to get a discount. Really appreciate that. It was so thoughtful of you. I know I'm chomping at the bit to get on your calendar. I'm sure many other people are as well, because you were nothing but a wealth of information today. Where do people get in contact with you? What are your socials? What's your website? How do people use that code? Please tell us.
You can find me over at the Rachel Varga podcast, which you're going to be on. I can't wait to have you on the show. And Michael, I'm going to give you a special promo code, but for everybody else listening here, use promo code MoldMedic15 for your one-on-one session with me that you can book at rachelvarga.ca. And also you can download, I have a freebie for everybody too. And it is my 9 keys to healthy skin and slowing cellular aging, which you can get at rachelvarga.ca/slow aging.
Well, thank you so much for being on here today and sharing and imparting your knowledge with us. And I hope that people listening learned a lot and have access to give you a email, a call, checking out your website so that they can start to get the help that they need. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And we'll have you on the show too. It's going to be a good time.